Good morning. I have the distinct honor and pleasure of introducing the current outgoing CWIS president and my good friend and mentor, Dr. Babak Sarani. Over the past 14 years, I've had the privilege of learning from him not only in the clinical setting, but also life lessons that have been invaluable to me. We've heard a lot about mentorship at this meeting, and Bob is the quintessential mentor. He has helped guide my career path and difficult life choices, and I can say without a doubt that I would not be a trauma surgeon if it wasn't for him. And I can also guarantee that I'm only one of many, many residents that can say that and that owe their career thanks to Dr. Sarani. When I was thinking about what I was going to say up here about him, the word that kept on popping into my mind that really describes him is tenacious. Words 2 and 3 were, loud and immature, but tenacious we're going to stick with. He's tenacious in really all aspects of his life. He seems to have this unlimited source of energy that really leads him to be successful in many of the things that he does. Whether he's leading a national committee or a regional committee, helping coordinate disaster management in Washington, D.C., building a new trauma center, which he's done 3 times in the last 15 years, by the way, setting up a critical care ambulance system, getting a helipad put on a building 6 blocks away from the White House, teaching and mentoring residents and medical students, and especially when taking care of patients. His personality is infectious, and his ability to lead a team of people is really something to be celebrated. I want to highlight the aspect of patient care for a second with Dr. Sarani. One of the many life lessons that I've learned from him over the years has been always be the guy that says yes to the operations. He never shies away from any clinical duties. He puts himself on call way more than you would expect somebody in his position to do. And he is constantly advocating for new techniques and advancing the care of surgery, not only for him, but also for his team. I once asked him what his favorite operation was. This was a couple of years ago. Hopefully it hasn't changed, but he's like, I love the complex abdominal wall reconstruction with multiple fistula takedowns. I find it very oddly relaxing to stand in the OR for 8 hours doing these cases. So it's like, okay, that's just the type of guy he is. His dedication to education is really something that also needs to be recognized. If you ever walk into his office, it's like walking into like a golden apple orchard. They're everywhere. They're like piled up on the desks and piled up on the filing cabinets. And it's always been like that. When I talked to Tina about how he was when he was a fellow, he's like, oh yeah, when he was at UPMC, he won the education award there, and he was only there for a year. So it's really his commitment to residents and his commitment to making sure that the next generation of surgeons is well educated and well supported that really makes him stand out. So Bob's tenacity isn't just present at work. It also extends to his home life as well. His beautiful wife Tina is here with him today, but Bob and Tina met when he was a resident in Washington, D.C. She was a travel nurse at Children's National, and she was on multiple travel assignments. And so she met him, and they started dating, and then she would move away for a couple of months to do travel assignments. And the way Tina puts it, when she met him, she was not at all looking forward to a relationship or looking for that, but here we are 20 years later. They have 2 daughters and have set up a wonderful life for themselves. As a father, he's always made time for his kids as well. He's always the quintessential family man, as well, as you can see from these pictures. He's been styling the dad short look there for like years and years. But since the very beginning, but he's always made time for his daughters. And you can see all the travel experiences that they do and share together. Finally, Bob's the type of guy that loves to have fun, as you can tell from these previous CWIS meetings. And he's the type of guy that is always outgoing and kind of the life of the party. And with that, I'd really like to introduce my good friend, Dr. Bob Sarani. come up here to give his presidential address. I will also add, there is video of him dancing like this. We have it if anybody wants it. I think, Sarah Ann, we need to put that up later on.
Thank you. I knew that middle picture was going to haunt me someday. I blame Sarah Ann Whitbeck squarely for that one. And some tequila. Michael, thank you. Mike Radomski is an exceptionally good friend. What he didn't tell you is when we recreated the George Washington University Trauma Center after it had been de-verified for 7 years, Mike was the first resident assigned to the trauma team that didn't exist as a PGY3. And so whatever credit I get for GW, Mike takes equal amounts of credit, because I was like, I don't know, what do you think we should do? And we set up GW Hospital together. So thank you, Michael. So it's a pleasure to be here. Needless to say, it's also daunting and humbling. Today I want to talk just briefly about some thoughts I've had about the Chest Wall Injury Society, places we should go. Hopefully we can work together to get there. And I thought maybe the best way to articulate my thoughts was to try to marry these concepts of passion, which I think is what we have, with compassion for the patient. And how do you take these two concepts and put them together? These are my disclosures. They have no relevance to this talk whatsoever. These are the objectives. As I said, I want to talk about us as a people, as a society, perhaps as individuals. I want to talk about your role, the membership's role in the Chest Wall Injury Society. You are the society. The society is us. And challenges to our growth and maybe opportunities moving forward. So as I thought about this talk for quite some time, I thought, well, you know, who are we? What embodies us? And these are quotes that I've kind of heard over the years. Many of them are from my beautiful wife. We'll talk about her momentarily. If you've ever read this book, if you haven't read this book, I recommend you do. It's Extreme Ownership, written by 2 former U.S. Navy SEALs. And they talk about leadership. And they talk about how the success of a team belongs to the team, but the failure of a team belongs to its leadership. And they make a very strong point that there are no such things as bad teams, only bad leaders. And so it's a really good book. And I thought, well, how do I apply that to my life? Not about this talk, just in general. And then I started thinking about the things that Tina and I have talked about for the last 24 years. And she said these types of things to me. This is not just a job. It's not a lifestyle for everybody. You save people's lives. You live and breathe and wonder about these people's lives. And because I don't know about you guys, I suspect this is true of you as well, but Michael pointed out that one of my favorite cases is a complex ab wall reconstruction. When I have a complex ab wall reconstruction, or even in our world, a very bad chest wall injury, the night before, I promise you I will not sleep. I'll be excited when the case is booked, and then that whole night before, I just have this impending feeling of dread and doom. Then we do the operation, and I probably won't sleep for about another 48 hours either. I usually tend to go about 3 days without sleeping very well. Tina's seen me walk around the house a few times at like 2 in the morning. That's because we are these people. We have extreme ownership, right? You touch it, you own it. You break it, you own it. Now, if it succeeds, I give credit to my resident staff. Thank you for hanging in there for 8 hours and telling me to turn left and not turn right and all that. But if things don't go well, it's mine. And then Tina said, you know, when I want to say something about why you're leaving, again, I think about the person waiting for you. So this is us. We are extreme owners. But whereas in the past everyone said the surgeon is the captain of the ship, I disagree with that. I think it's a team effort. And if you haven't seen this movie, I really recommend you see the movie. There's also a book. But I watched the movie. This is a true story of a guy who was really just a regular Joe in the 1940s and heard about how the Nazis were about to systematically kill all these children as the beginning of World War II, and was able to muster help from other colleagues and friends and some non-for-profit organizations, and saved 669 Jewish kids from being killed. And I don't want to give the whole movie away, but at the end of the movie, he sees himself as a failure. And you're like, well, how could you possibly see yourself as a failure? And he goes, well, I could have done so much more. And so that's basically the basis of the movie. But he gives all the credit to the people with whom he worked and takes ownership of the loss of the ones that he couldn't rescue. The point I got out of that movie is it actually does take more than one person to make a magnificent movement move forward, right? It was his idea, true, but it was his team that allowed him to save all these kids. And so I start thinking a little bit now about our society, right? We had this one maverick, his name's Tom White, you might have heard of him. He had this crazy idea, and he created this movement. I know that it is us who will push that movement up the hill as a team to make things happen. So how do you kind of take some of these lessons now and apply them at the bedside? And these are some other quotes that I've kind of heard over the years that have really rung in my head. Tom Scalia, at his WASD presidential address several years ago, said 2 words, and it's classic Tom Scalia. Easy, straight to the point, and just pierces you, right? Very classic Tom Scalia. He got up on the podium at Las Vegas and said, "Death sucks." And I was in the audience, and I was like, man, you nailed it. Yeah. You don't have to be like super elegant with words. Because I don't know about you, but here's the other problem with me. I don't acknowledge death. I don't understand it. I don't like it. I don't want it. And when my partner in crime, John Pryor, died, I didn't understand that. How could you? I just saw you yesterday, and now you're not here today. And dang it, the last joke at my expense you made. I cannot retort. So death does suck. But what does that mean? Does that mean that we have to do everything in our power to keep everybody alive? Right? I was talking to Dr. Stewart last night, and I said to him, "I will keep you on ECMO forever," said every cardiac surgeon. Right? No. So where do we marry our passion with compassion? Where do we say enough is enough already? And this is how you translate that. I've heard these quotes before. You know, Babak, people have broken the ribs for a millennia. No one needs this operation. It's a whole sham thing anyway. Just let it go. Okay, let's do nothing. On the other hand, I've also heard this. I mean, dude, it's a subcutaneous operation. It's not even a real case. We should just play it everybody, right? And you start getting that whole concept of, I would play it a cat if it fell out of the tree. Like, dude, oh, relax. Marrying passion with compassion. And here's what happens when you have the expert naysayer. The expert naysayer, this is a CT scan of one of my patients from many years ago. This guy is a wonderful guy. This guy was on a motorcycle on the highway, got into a bad crash, went to a legitimate 1,000-bed trauma center. Clearly, that is not GW Hospital. We are legitimate, but we don't have 1,000 beds, just for the record. And over there, in that big trauma center, they said to him, you know, we don't believe in chest reconstruction. Here is a tremendous amount of Percocet. Walk it off. This gentleman's job was the service advisor at an automobile dealership. Like, for example, you take your car in, change the oil, the car makes a funny noise. He says, okay, I'm going to fix the funny noise. He was good old-fashioned middle-class America, salt-of-the-earth guy. He did exactly what he was told. He took a tremendous amount of Percocet, became addicted to opioids, then became an alcoholic, then lost his job. Then his marriage went on the rocks. And he finally found me through the internet, and that's the CAT scan. We took him to the OR, did my first ever, very difficult reconstruction. You can imagine what that looked like. We made a joke in the OR that we hope we don't make an X-Wing fighter out of his ribs, because we didn't know which rib belonged to what. Success, maybe. I got him off opioids. He never got his job back. Marriage recovered to some degree, but never became that same guy he was. So the expert naysayer who says, never do this. On the other hand, plating everybody, we got this quote. The leadership of CWIS has heard about this quote. I've been circulating for a couple of years. The entire society is biased towards rib plating. We got this from an anonymous individual who was reviewing one of our papers. And so maybe one thing we should do as a society is take a page from the Society of Vascular Surgeons or the thoracic surgeons. The vascular guys is a little bit more relevant to us, because if you go to a vascular surgeon and you say, hey, my leg hurts when I walk, he doesn't say, I'll book you for the OR for a fempop bypass. What he says is, stop smoking, walk some more, control your diabetes, control your blood pressure, let's go non-operative, and then yes, if you get to some critical endpoints that they have defined, then you will get a fempop bypass. That's true. We need to get there. We need to understand who needs to be operated upon, the first person, the expert naysayer, get rid of that guy, and who does not need to be operated upon, the person who says, I'll play the cat when he falls out of the tree. So how do you take these kind of concepts and translate them to actionable items? Well, gets back to extreme ownership. Who are we? We, I would argue very vociferously, are experts in chest wall injury management, not just repair, operative and non-operative. We're experts in the literature. Where did this 3-rib, 50% displaced rule come from? This has become like the word handed from God to Moses. Every paper is like 3 ribs, 50% displaced. Many of us, I think those of us who were there at the beginning of the society remember this. This was the pre-paper. This was Fred Pieracci's pre-paper to non-flail. Fred wanted to do a randomized controlled trial. Well, how do you do a randomized controlled trial? You need to have equipoise so that you don't violate the ethics of medical studies. So he just surveyed us, and he was like, hey, guys and gals, would you plate 1 rib? And people were like, no. 2 ribs? No. 3 ribs? Maybe. 4? 5? Definitely. 6? Definitely. So 3 became the rule. That was the 50-50 shot. So you please understand that these rules are made by us, for us, with us, meaning they are subject to change. Right? That's what I tell my hospital administrators when they pull a policy. I'm like, oh, this policy was created by man, for man, by man. We will not change it. Right? Nothing is set in stone. And so we know the limitations of the data. So if you don't like something, then let's study that. Let's change that. Everything has to be a living document. And we're in a great spot to do that because we know the inner workings of said information. The pitfall, of course, is your anchoring bias. The anchoring bias is, I will do this because that's the way it has to be. That is a very absolute way of thinking. And that's what shackles us. So I would say again and again in this talk, respect the science, respect the data, but always, as the Jesuits taught me in high school, always ask why, and then move on from there. So my challenge to the membership is commit with passion to CWIS. You take our passion, our desire to do good, our energy, and commit to CWIS. But what does that mean? Well, that means you got to do stuff. You got to show up and you got to work. But I took this quote from my good friend Pat Riley, who said, learn how to say no, but saying yes can be fun. True. Somebody else said to me once, for every person you say yes to, you say no to somebody else, and frequently it's your own family. Well, okay. So when Sarah Ann and Tom turned to me and said, would you like to be president of the society? I was beyond flattered. And I immediately called the American Trauma Society and said, hey guys, I love being on the board of the ATS, but it is a lot of work. I'm going to have to step down. And then the Surgical Critical Care Program Director Society called me and said, hey, you've been on the executive, you're on the slate, would you like to be the president? I think for the first time in the history of the SEC PDS, I said no. I'm like, no. So, well, you guys, I'm president of CWIS, and I'm running a trauma center. I'm about to start another trauma center. I've got a wife, 2 kids. There's only so many things I can do. And I don't want to show up just to say, look at me, I'm Mr. President. I want to do something valuable, meaningful, impactful, leave something behind. So yes, you need to be able to say no, even though saying yes, let me tell you, is a tremendous amount of fun. And what that does is it allows you to commit and then deliver. So if you join a committee, which you should, then you need to show up and deliver. One of the best pieces of advice I got was from my chairman today, Dr. Anton Sidawe. We'll talk about him in a few minutes. And he said to me, Babak, the secret to success is join a committee. We were talking about national committees and stuff. He goes, just 2 things, man. Show up to the meeting and say something. That's it. He goes, you'd be surprised. People are going to sign up. They're not going to show up. And then when they do show up, they'll do absolutely nothing. All you have to do is show up and do something and say something, and you'll stick out. And in short order, you'll become the chairman, and then they'll move you along because people will know when they ask you to do something, you can, and you will. The single biggest threat to our society, in my opinion anyway, today, is becoming irrelevant. Is becoming irrelevant because our studies and our science start to lag behind. And let's face it, we talked about this a little bit at this meeting. Our procedure, chest wall reconstruction, is starting to become, let's not say ubiquitous, let's just say common, right? But the data that drive patient selection and the data that drive patient management overall, they come from us. And so long as we maintain honesty to that and put our time and effort into that, we will continue to be relevant. We will continue to be the premier institution that defines the standard of care for chest wall injured patients. So Dobin said, you forgot to take your L-DOPA when you wrote this graph. That is not true. I took my L-DOPA. By the way, I stole this from Pat Riley with zero guilt. He used this as his presidential address. Over on the graph that says membership versus time, that's kind of roughly what's happened to our membership. if you look at it. In a very short order, in just 9 years since the inception of this society, we have pushed just under 800 members. That's where we stand right now. Goes up, goes down. For those of you who have not paid your dues, for God's sakes, pay your dues so it goes up again. But we've got fairly exponential growth. And Larry Lautenberg said, remember a couple days ago when he got the Bill Long Award, he predicted 500 members in 5 years. And we were like, Larry, you're crazy. 800 members in 9 years. The guy was straight on target. But what we haven't done is the other graph. We haven't had breakout energy yet. We haven't gone to the point of critical mass where we can have an explosion in work product. And that's what we need to aim for. In one graph, done. Second graph, that's where I would challenge the membership. Again, please contribute to the society. We are the society is us. Without us, nothing happens. But it's not, easy said. Easy to stand here and tell you all these things, and then lofty goals, and then we go home and we try to do stuff, and then, reviewer 2. I don't know where Dr. Kwambra finds reviewer 2. I think he's got a closet full of reviewer 2. We all want to know where this closet is so we can make this closet lock it shut, but inevitably reviewer 2 is there. Reviewer 2 is that difficult individual who's going to say no to everything, right? Reviewer 2 is your IRB who insists you change one word and you cannot get past them until they become it. Okay. Reviewer 2 is the data use agreements for our multi-center trials that the lawyers make a tremendous amount of money agreeing to things we never actually read or to care about, right? So that I make sure if I tell Fred Pieracci patient 3's hemoglobin was 7, he can't use that information anywhere again. Reviewer 2. And of course, all the hurdles that are in front of us when we actually want to do something actionable. That's where we need to lean on each other. That's where we need positive energy of like, my God, Joe, this is just so difficult. And Joe's like, I know, man, but here's what happened to me over at Stanford. I'm like, oh, that's pretty good. It's good to know you got the same issues. I got the same issues. Let's move forward together. This is where we can lean on each other as a functional team to overcome adversity and difficulty. Because if you really think about it, this is kind of the way the world works. I don't think anybody in this room has a job. A job is something you do just to make a living. You're not terribly happy about it, but you got to do it because you got to pay the rent. I understand that. Career is kind of what I have. I hope it's what you have. I'm looking over here at my friend Vic. I've known him for 8, 9 years now. Vic absolutely has a career. The guy's passionate. Career is something you want to do to make a difference. And by the way, you get paid for it too, which is really nice. So when we do a chest wall reconstruction, when we take a patient, not even reconstruct him, but rather educate that individual, treat their pain. When I do a multi-head fistula takedown, that is to me my career. I enjoy doing that. I think I help people doing that. And by the way, I get paid nicely to do that. It's a win. Volunteerism is what we do here. Volunteerism is something you do solely for the passion of it. The reward is internal. No one's paying any of us to be here. Well, that's not exactly true. I'm generous enough, I'm lucky enough that my chairman is actually paying me to come to this meeting by not cutting off my salary for not being productive. But point being, volunteerism is what drives innovation. That's true of the entire United States if you think about it. The United States was built on innovation, on passion, on volunteerism, and doing things because it's the right thing to do. And that's what I would challenge everybody on. And one lesson I've learned, which is a little bit of a difficult lesson to internalize, still working on actually actioning it, is to be a servant leader. It is difficult. It really is. It's difficult to be chairman of the committee, have that committee be super productive, and not take overt credit for it, to just lay back and relax. This is where my chairman has taught me a lot. He says he made this joke, he says this joke every year, he made it a couple nights ago. We started a brand new trauma center, and it's coming along slowly but surely. And he said, the secret is to hire good people, let them do their work, and then take the credit. Which is that's not what he does. What he does is he gives me the resources I need, does not micromanage me, and then when it's time for ribbon cutting, he makes damn sure I'm in the front row. That's kind of how we roll everything forward, right? Everybody knows who you are. Everybody knows you're the leader of that particular committee or society or whatever it is. Everybody knows you drove that boat. You don't have to say it. And those who don't know, don't need to know. And all of a sudden, you're getting phone calls saying, hey, can you do this next greatest thing, right? I challenged a couple of our members, my own dear partner in crime, Susan Cardico, with coming up with a $10 million grant, which is a bit lofty. And Susan goes to her office, closes the door, and comes out and just Hey, Bob, I've got this like 5-page grant. Can you just take a look at it? I'm like, when did you do that? 2 days ago, I was in the back watching the presentations. She goes, yeah, I just wrote this little proposal. Can you just take a look at it? I'm like, when did you write this proposal? So, and that's kind of how you do it. Challenge people, be a servant leader, and allow them to grow. So I'll finish with just a couple more words, and then I'll get back to hopefully the educational portion of our meeting today. The challenge I'm going to pose to the membership for the future of Chest Wall Injury Society. I think we have to remember that before any of us were doctors, nurses, respiratory therapists, physical therapists, whatever we are, we're humans. And we cannot forget the value of the human touch. That's why we all went to various healthcare professional school, right? And I think we need to very strongly pivot toward patient-centered studies. We need to ask the difficult questions of what is important to you. We need to take a lesson from the oncologists. It used to be that if you got a cancer, God forbid, you would get XYZ chemotherapy no matter what, because they didn't have customization of their therapies. Now, that's not what they do. Now they take a piece of your tumor and they give you a highly customized therapy with far fewer side effects. We need to get to the point in our management of the chest wall injured patient where we understand their values. We understand what success is from their point of view, and then we customize our therapy to them. So one of my patients came to me a while ago and he goes, Bob, what I really enjoy is golfing. Oh, gee, guys, golfing with a bunch of busted ribs, that's going to hurt real bad. So let's talk about that. What if somebody else comes up and says, I don't like to golf at all, but what I really enjoy, I enjoy going and watching my daughter play lacrosse. Well, that's a whole different animal. I would argue that therapies for those two people are two very different therapies. And we need to get to the point where we have understanding of how to approach these people. Now, our society is only 9 years old. It's young. I get that. But I think we've plucked the low-hanging fruit. We now need to go for the far more difficult, customized, nuanced questions and answers. And it starts by asking the patient, what do you want? And then building studies around that end point. So my challenge to you, then, is be honest and be transparent with one another. Come up, let's have honest communication. Hey, your study was really good, but you probably should have looked at it this way. I just had that conversation with Babak Patel. Where are you, Babak? There he is, over breakfast. He came up to you and goes, hey, Bob, that study you guys did on polytrauma, which, by the way, was inspired by Rod Kuhnbrow, was really interesting. Here's what we do down in Australia, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, Babak, genius work, man. We should align you with like Pieraci and Dobin and Everett and the others, and maybe we can do a multi-center study and ask these very granular questions. So that's what I'm talking about, is taking what we have and creating energy around it, using your passion to drive that forward so that we can apply the data correctly to the patient in a compassionate way. I think plating everybody is not compassionate. And I think not plating anybody is also not compassionate. Have deference to the truth and ask why. Push colleagues to do meaningful studies when answers are unknown. Let's move beyond rib-centered studies. What type of plating system would you use? How many screws would you put in? Inside, outside, inside. I don't think that matters. I think we need to ask the question, who do you plate? But more importantly, who do you not plate? Uh-oh. Okay. And then inspire the next generation of providers. I was super, super happy a couple days ago. I was on cloud 9. That young gentleman who stood up, I'm not sure if you're still in the audience, you're my medical student who said, don't call me doctor, comma, yet. I have to pass the USMLE Part 2. Brother, my heart bleeds for you. We were all there. You'll make it. But thank you for coming to the Chest Wall Injury Society and presenting. And to all of our young, new members, thank you and welcome. And I think what we now need to do is emulate good behavior. Emulate what it's like to create studies, emulate what it's like to be transparent, emulate what it's like to be honest and to have frank conversations, right? Professional, kind, but honest. And let's train that next generation up to someday, God willing, anybody in the room take my job. All right. My last thought, and then I'm going to just finish by thanking a couple of people who've been instrumental in my life. My last parting thought for you guys to kind of bring this little thing to an end is marry your passion. The passion is what brings us here. The passion is why we spent the last 3-4 days in Atlanta together. Marry that passion, that desire to do good with compassion for the patient. But doing so requires you to acknowledge your own biases. Doing so requires you to then take that acknowledgement, understanding who you are, and temper it, and apply evidence-based to the patient. And if you don't like the evidence, not a problem. Study it and change it. But don't naysay every article you disagree with and hold up the ones you do agree with as gold truth. Neither of those statements is true. Be true to the science, but don't let it limit you. Always ask why, so told to me by the Jesuits who taught me in high school. Couple more slides. I'm going to end by thanking people who were instrumental in my life. This is clearly not an inclusive list, so if I forget somebody or if I didn't have room for the slide, I didn't want this talk to go on for the next 14 hours, I do apologize up front. The gentleman in your upper left-hand side is Dr. Paul Lin. The GW cohort knows Dr. Lin very well. Dr. Lin has got to be the single best technical surgeon I've met in my life. To watch Paul operate is to watch a ballerina dance. It is elegance of movement. So if I've saved a couple people's lives, maybe over the years, it's really because of the techniques Paul taught me on how to sew and how to make decisive decisions. The next three gentlemen in the top, man, they do not need any introduction at all. That's Dr. Andy Peitzman, Dr. Bill Schwab, Dr. Patrick Riley. These guys are my mentors. They have helped me without me even knowing they were helping me. Phone calls were made. I didn't know that. And what they really taught me was leadership. They taught me how to be humble. They taught me how to lead a team. They taught me how to advance science. They taught me how committees work, how societies work, how to engage. So to them, I am eternally grateful. That gentleman in the lower right-hand side, that's my chairman. His name is Dr. Anton Sadaway. He is president-elect of the American College of Surgeons, texted me last night. From Dr. Sadaway, I have learned how to maintain the peace, to use his words. Because Babak, someday you might have my job, and your job will be to maintain the peace. And so from him, I've learned how to acknowledge other people's thoughts, how to put myself in their shoes, and how to understand why people sometimes say the word no, when in fact you can kind of work them to yes if you just look at it from their perspective. Then I'm going to skip that middle one and go over to my far left, to your far left. That's a weird-looking guy. He's standing up back there. Tom White. Tom White has got to be the single most humble human I have ever met in my life. The guy created a society, and he started 3 days ago by saying, "Thank you for allowing me to remain as the chairman of your society." I'm like, "Chairman of the society? You own the society." He has never taken credit for anything. When we have Zoom meetings together at the executive level, I'm like, "Hey, Tom this, Tom that." He doesn't acknowledge. He just stays quiet. A genius, a master surgeon, a truly humble man. And then the picture in the middle, I want to leave that one for last, with me and Sarah Ann. And I would just put a word of advice out for Everett and for Stefan and for anybody else who follows. Do not ever, and I do mean ever, go to a significant meeting without Sarah Ann Whitbeck standing right next to you. That would be a catastrophic error. We are the AAST Board of Managers presenting, and we had a little bit of a handshake together. I was like, "Sarah, you're the brains and I'm the mouth." So you got to tell me what to say, man. So Sarah Ann, thank you for everything you've done for the society. This is my team at home. They are home schlepping it out, man. They got a bunch of traumas last night. They've been crushing it. On the upper left-hand side is Stephanie Basie. She's our she's my trauma program manager. I tell her, "You're Congress, I'm president, you have all the money, please give me some cash." And we have to make peace with one another to move the center forward. She's wonderful. Those are my partners in crime. We are small but mighty. There's only 5 of us, myself included. And I tell people we are the story of David and Goliath. Which would you rather be? To your right are our advanced practitioners. They actually run the show. They are the engine that makes us move. I would not upset them too much. They tend to go axe throwing, apparently. On the bottom is our police force. Those are our performance improvement coordinators. Without them, we would have no clue how good or bad we are. I adore everything they say. They routinely knock on my door and say, "Hey, Bob, you made a mistake." And I'm thankful that they point that out to me. Helena's job is to put us out of business. Unfortunately, she's fairly good at it. She's our injury prevention coordinator. And I think somewhere along the line, this is my self-image. I'm Bosley from Charlie's Angels. If you remember that show? That weird dude, little overweight, kind of didn't have much of a role. That's my job. This is my beautiful wife, Tina. You're going to meet her hopefully later on today. Is John Edwards here? He's still karaokeing. All right. This is us in a British pub, in a London pub, drinking to the health of the king. Tina has been with me for 24 years now, right? These are some quotes from Tina. Do you know how hard it is being married to a surgeon? To be honest with you, that's not what she said. She said, do you know how hard it is being married to you? But I am a surgeon. So I said, all right. And I married a 12-year-old because my goal in life when I get home is to just act kooky and funny and make people laugh, and I do enjoy doing that. She's been my soulmate for 24 years. You already saw this picture. I like being that kooky dude. I am the dad. I wear shorts that are too long, socks that are too high. It's terrible. This is what we really look like when we go on vacation together. This is us and the girls. Super excited. And I'll leave you with this one, which is my self-image. Somewhere between these two extremes is who I am. I'll end by simply thanking you guys for the opportunity to be your president. It's been nothing but a pleasure. Thank you very much.
So it's become a custom to gift our outgoing presidents with something special, and so we thought long and hard about this one. Actually, it wasn't that hard. Just went to that little drawer under my desk. That's, for those of you who don't know, that's Japanese whiskey, and a nice little decanter to put it in.
I like the CWIS, thank you.
You're welcome.
CWIS etch, of course.
Of course.
And it's got your name.
It does have my name. I didn't even notice that. I just went for the CWIS etching.
You own it.
Well, the valley to me is the CWIS etching. I don't know. Thank you very much. I wish I had a hand for you. Shake hands with you guys.
Fantastic.
I'll just do this.
That's a big deal. So, what do you get the guy that has everything, right? Like, the cool job, the cool car, the amazing wife, the cool kids, like, so it took a lot.
Oh, no.
I know, how amazing that this photo could pop up again, right? How lucky are we? So I started looking through my photos, and so then I called Dr. Cardico, and I was like, what do you think? And so then, she said, oh, he'll love this whiskey, so I ordered the decanter. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to go to his GW page because I need something else, something that just really pops. So I'm reading through his bio, nothing super specific. And then I get to the bottom, and it says, during his off time, he enjoys traveling with his wife and 2 daughters and eating at fine restaurants. Okay. And is now on the search for the best alpaca steak.
Oh my God! Where did you get that?
And so,
That's ridiculous!
I present to you Cricket. And I don't know what you're going to do with Cricket, but God bless her. There she is. I knew you liked barnyard animals from the first photo.
Here we go.
Hi, sweetie.
Open stairs. Well, we have a treat for you too, so you guys can be super good friends.
And we just thought, maybe you and Cricket could have some bonding time.
Oh my goodness. We are. This is happening.
She's even got her CWIS cap on.
She sure does.
Sure does.
Oh my, oh my.
So, you figure out how to get her home and what you're going to do with that.
How do you fly with an alpaca? We'll talk about it.
Well, you figure it out. I'm sure you'll do a great job. I love you.
Okay. There we go. Now we're talking. Look over there. There you go. There you go.
Good job, Cricket. Cricket, you're nailing it, babe.
All right, very good. Thank you.
You are
You're insane.
so
You're insane.
That is 100% true. I am 100% insane. Thank you.